Holly Cotton here, and I am so excited about our episode today. I love, love, love having conversations with people that are being the change and also using their voice to educate as they're doing that, support people, support a cause. You guys know I'm a huge mental health advocate. I love anything to do with mental health, especially men's mental health. So today I am joined by Mr. Egypt Brown, aka Egypt X. If you guys follow him on social media, he's easy to find. And Egypt is an American sports and government advisor. He is the founder of excuse me, he is the founder of Fight for Mental Health. He has also been instrumental in restructuring, excuse me, the diversification of combat sports, boxing, MMA, collective bargaining agreements. He's an influencer, an athlete engager. He's part of esports, boxing promotions. You'll see him all over. If you look at his page, he's all over in everybody's in everybody's business doing big things. So, welcome Egypt.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored.
Yes. So first, Egypt and I connected at it actually was a mental health thing in Miami, and we
Correct.
kind of were all just staying sitting around after, well, not sitting around, standing around after, just talking. And then I don't even know how, but he had a shiny hat on and caught my attention, and then we were just vibing, and then now I'm like, oh wow, you're doing all kinds of other stuff. You really just never know who you meet just being in the room with people. So to go into all of the other stuff, Egypt, why don't you tell us who you are, some of the things that you do other than the bio that I just read? Give us a little idea. Who is Egypt Brown?
Thank you so much. I'm honored that we're having this conversation today. You have a tremendous platform. And one of the reasons I was excited to come on here is, as you mentioned, we met at a mental health event, and there were athletes there, there were students there, and there were other components, of different organizations coming together to address the problem. And a little bit about myself is I've always been an athlete since day one, but I was also one of the top achievers in academics in the nation. And I was very competitive in sports, excuse me, and I was also competitive in academics. And I actually have a well diverse background because I was on both sides of the bridge. So I was able to hang out, with friends and associates that grew up a lot wealthier than me, but I got to see what that lifestyle was like. And then on the other side of the bridge, I was able to adapt. My area is, we don't have theme parks. We didn't have a lot of constructive programs, so pretty much on it's a very savage land. So on a daily basis, you're playing sports or you're kicking ass and fighting and things of this nature. So I had a lot of room to where if I wanted to go into a life of toxic behaviors and be stuck in a cage somewhere, I mean, all those options were available. But I always saw myself doing something more, and I was always very determined mentally. That people weren't going to decide my future; they weren't going to decide who I was and who I was not. And so I just I took the time to develop my goals, develop my skills, constantly be learning and progressing. And where that took me is in Northern California. I ended up working later on after college and things of this nature and playing sports. I ended up going into business and the community. So I was doing different government projects then. I was also working with our NBA team and our franchise players and connecting the community to these organizations, like the NBA, etc. I became a junior executive at one of our big networks, CBS, and with all that going on, I ended up running into an unfortunate situation where I'm living nice, living in a gated community, and some individuals came in to rob a neighbor of mine, and they ended up killing him and anyone else they thought that saw him. And I myself just happened to be outside with a neighbor, was having a simple conversation, and it just happened real quick. And 2 days later, I got shot at point blank range. I was hit in both femoral arteries, different parts of my body. And what saved my life is God, who I call the Supreme, out of reverence, and also boxing. I was training, just in my regiment, my discipline. I wasn't putting on fights, but I was training with still the best fighters of my region. And I would go up and down the stairs with weights, and it was part of my regimen. And I never knew that I would end up having to go up those stairs, bleeding out of my body and being in that kind of situation. So, um, you hear commonly, like when people, I don't go around telling everyone the story because I don't have a victim mindset, but you hear people say things like, "Oh, you're so lucky to live," and things of this nature. But what my condition was is, number one, I couldn't walk. And the hospital and the medical staff never once did we even have a conversation about walking again. Wasn't even a conversation.
Mm.
On top of that, they have you on a lot of pills. I mean, from the medical world, I mean, they get you highly dosed. And then what was just as bad is, so my ACL, MCL, and PCL was destroyed in one leg, and I had other injuries in the other. And what happened is your MCL is like that rubber band that allows you to expand. I wasn't able to even stretch my legs out and rest. So my legs were kind of, I was like always like in a huddled position to try to rest. And between that, not being able to move independently, like, going from being an athlete, excuse me, and being so independent, you see the lifestyle. I mean, when just simple things like when I finally got to crutches, people are rushing past you to get into a grocery store, get in the door. People treat you like
Mm.
a subhuman when you're in a crippled situation. So I made up my mind. I decided one night I was not going to rest until I found a solution. And so I ended up going online. I still to this day don't know how I found this treatment plan, but I came across a treatment plan from an athlete from University of Florida that had had the same injury as me. And they were able to get him recovered through water treatment and hydro and things of
Mm.
this nature, and he was able to
Mm.
actually go back and play football again. And so I said, man, so if he was able to go back and play at a high level, I can walk again. And I made that a hope. Also, what gave me a lot of like mental determination is there was an athlete that had been shot one time in one femoral artery with a 22. I was hit by 45s. He died. He was one of the top NFL players and specimens in the world. But unfortunately, he passed away. And I took it as, I'm not gonna go out like this. The same mindset I had
Mm.
when I got shot. I didn't even let it register. Same thing was for this. So, I went from not being able to stretch my legs to stretching my legs. From there, I could stand, and then from there, I was able to walk with a major limp, but I'm still walking. Then I was able to walk and go upstairs. And then from there, I was able to, jog slowly. And then from there, I was able to run. So I just kept pushing the limits, and I let all that anger and frustration out. I channeled it into my recovery. I didn't have a medical staff, I didn't have a recovery team. I just got in a swimming pool every single day and worked. And to answer your question, the short version is, um, I didn't want to feel like anyone ran me out of my city just out of my pride. And so I stayed for a
Mm.
while, but I saw that in Vegas, if you're in the business that the best athletes and the best talent are there. And so I decided that I was continuously working on my physical condition. I said, I'm going to go to Vegas, and I'm gonna take things to another level. So um, I didn't know anyone there. I didn't have a base. I knew nobody at the time in Vegas, and so I shot out there. It was a risky thing, you would say, because I already was established, but I did it. And I started training with the best athletes in the world without telling them any excuses. I didn't tell them what happened. I didn't tell them all the people I knew and all the associations I had. I just got to work, and it went, luckily for me, as I'm working, I'm developing and I'm working with the money team and Floyd and some of the best athletes. And I actually had amazing trainers that I was progressing so fast, so rapidly. I was, always had the fundamentals, but I naturally progressed where, they were making plans for me to have a career of my own in the fighting business. And so, you're training, you're hanging out with each other's families. You start to get really close. So I started to see like where the gaps were, like in the business. Like they didn't have the education level I had. They didn't have the communication level I had. In some cases I was more talented, even physically. But um, you have an option. You can either be the poster or you can run the show. And I
Mm.
decided, it wasn't the easiest transition because you got to prove to guys. I mean, they don't want to hear about your stories. They don't want to hear your plans. They don't want to hear a long-winded explanation. They want to see, where you're at and get the results done. So, not only did I do that at such a high level right from the jump, but I was taking on big challenges. I was getting, huge results, and the rest is history. I have so much of a track record now because everything I touch has a lot of high magnitudes. It's the high stakes, and so it's a risk. You have to be honest. You have to have integrity, but nevertheless, I've been very successful, and from there I've expanded. I have clients in every sector, including now government. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, no, it did, and I read on your bio about the you getting shot. So I was hoping that we would be able to implement that without me getting all in your business. So
Yes,
thank you, Egypt, for volunteering it.
absolutely.
One of the things that I do want to sort of piggyback on is when you were talking about being in the hospital and going through the services that the healthcare offered. And I know I'm a big advocate about whenever you have especially a health trauma. For me it was cancer, for you it was getting shot. We all have these things that happen that are these traumatic events, and a lot of people don't realize the depression that comes in with the loss of function. And you get so caught up in fighting to survive that once you actually survive and you look at your life after, you're like, okay, what comes next? So, was that one of the things that kind of exposed itself during your treatment where you were like, wait a minute, no one has come in here and asked me about my mental health. No one's asking me how I'm going to deal with this. I'm not getting resources to help me deal with life after. Is that kind of how this whole fight for mental health sort of erupted?
Great question. It absolutely had a huge impact. It's a very, as you've experienced, it's a lonely feeling when you're in that hospital. And there were times, yeah, I had some people come to see me, but people were kind of scared because it was a shooting. So people were kind of keeping their distance. And so I'm just in there in my thoughts, and I had to think about the future. I wasn't expecting this to happen, obviously, so I wasn't really prepared all the way mentally. But I had that time to really sit there and push out a plan. But I did feel neglected. I mean, at the very beginning, like the nurses and the staff were kind of treating me like a criminal until they figured out what actually happened. They don't know if it's a drug deal gone bad. That you get all these stigmas. So,
Right.
they weren't the best in their interactions with me at the very beginning. But I do remember, for example, when I was rushed into the hospital. So the first 24 hours, they couldn't give me any pain medication, even after the surgery. So I was in excruciating pain after a while. Like throughout the surgery, mentally, it didn't even phase me. I was so in my zone. I just and they thought I was weird because I wasn't reacting and screaming in pain and being dramatic, but um I was just taking it all in. And there was a point where the nurse, she felt really bad. She was a very nice lady. And I said, you can't just get me anything, like not a Tylenol. I mean, it's after the surgery, you're just sitting there, so the adrenaline's worn off. You're feeling the pain on a much higher intensity, and I was feeling kind of neglected. And I could see that's one of the ways that people get hooked to these drugs too. Is you can gain a dependency. And actually, it's funny you asked this. I mean, there was a point where even with my pain, I just threw my pills away because I could feel the powers of dependency on these. And there'd be times I found myself, they give you a limit, but there's a point where I'm just taking them and I don't really need it at that moment, just to kind of stay numb, because I didn't want to feel pain. And it just became a habit.
Yeah, that's why it's so easy to get addicted too, because you get that euphoric feel, and sometimes you don't even it's not even for the pain, it's just the euphoria that people are taking it for.
Correct. Like if you're being honest with yourself, I actually had to call a close friend and let him know, like, I need you to keep me accountable, and make sure that I'm not taking these, because the last thing I wanted to become is from there progress into an addict of some kind. And those drugs have a lot of power and control on people. So, the bottom line is, no one came to me during that time, as you mentioned, and said, what, let's talk to you about the trauma that you're dealing with. Let's talk to you about ways that you can now cope with this or deal with this or handle this. Not at all. The physical part, because I mean, and no one, whether you're man, woman, or child, wants to deal with this, but um, as a man, you're a provider, so not being able to just get up and go and do what you have to do, it could take a toll on your mental. The pain edge takes a toll on your mental. And people, they're not living in your shoes, so they don't know like that it's pain talking or it's something else that's communicating. They're just taking you at your word, the surface level. So that definitely played a part. And that's why I don't complain. I don't feel sorry for myself. It's one of the best things that could have happened to me.
Mm, okay. Interesting. Okay, that's what I was trying to, because it's always something that sort of ignites that it's either the pull of pain or the push of possibility. So sometimes pain is what pushes you into that, finding that passion in your purpose. So my next question I wanted to ask you is, because you are surrounded by sports and athletics, and you are not and we're not talking about just basic athletes, we're talking about the highest of the highest performing high level athletes. And you see some of these athletes when they just start, like it might be their first fight or it might be their first game, or and then you see them at the height of their career, but you also see a lot of athletes that are at the lowest point of their career. So give us a little bit of the backstory of what goes on that side. How are they being able to navigate through their mental health issues, or I don't want to say issues, but just mental health concerns?
And again, a great question. That's actually what caused me to create Fight for Mental Health, was for that reason. And so in my world, I don't relay any information from one to the other because I'm one of the very few in history that works with even rivals and fellow competitors. And most of the time they would never allow this, but because of the way that I move and the way that I handle things, there's never been an issue, and nor will there ever be. But you see, sometimes there's substance abuse issues, where maybe they had habits when they were younger and now they have the resources to take it further. Or maybe they kind of dabbled here and there with certain things at a time in their life, but now that they have downtime, maybe, again, there's associates and associations around that. it just becomes, I guess, a thing, for them to do. You see self-sabotage, you see relationships destroyed or ruined. There's times when they're at fault, and there's times when others are just scumbags. And so, you also see the pressure on their families. So what I don't just deal with just the athletes. I have to deal with their family, their associates, direct associates, or unfortunately, people have organizations and connections. You have mafias, you have cartels, you have gangs that they're affiliated with before or and during their careers, and these are all environments that really stress them out because you have one side where from the financial end, you have family members, whether it's parents or, other ones that are on their bank accounts that are spending the money as they're spending it. And because they expect them to just, keep it coming in, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. And then an injury can happen. And what people don't even understand beside, as well as injuries is number one, that's not an excuse for performance. So if you have an injury, there's guys that or women that will put themselves in harm's way and still have to perform because maybe they weren't financially responsible, or you have people relying on you that are not financially mature. So you have that side of things. So when you perform, there's no room for excuses. You can't say, "Oh, I was hurt, I was injured." If they see you on the floor, if they see you in the ring, if you're on the field, you're just as liable for your performance as any other time. So that's one part. And then with the injuries, when they do push themselves so far that something snaps or something breaks, or if they're so focused on not getting injured, they do get hurt. Well, what happens is people in general as fans or as spectators, they wonder, they're like, oh man, they need to come back strong, and they need to just get off that injury, just come back. Well, the part that attacks their mental is it's like this. The people that you're competing against are only getting stronger. The healthier they are, the stronger they are physically, the faster they're running. Um, they're always developing their strength. They're getting more and more of an advantage. So when a person gets hurt or injured, first of all, you're not even able to train at that point. You have to hit a pause. So they're gaining weight, they're losing muscle, and they're also losing the development side of things, while the other person you're watching is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So they realize that they already were within it's like a point 0.1, 0.2 percentage off of each other competition wise, where because they're all so highly trained, and this is from early ages. So from early ages, they've been competing against each other. There's people that have beat each other in things from like the fifth grade, sixth grade, and they still remember. Like people don't think it's serious. So um, now you see that this person, you might have beat them when you guys were younger, you might have had that advantage. And so they're like, oh, yeah, I have to redeem that eighth grade loss, that loss when I was 13, 14 years old. I haven't forgot. So they're working harder than ever. They see that they're down, so now they turn up the intensity. So by the time they get back from being healthy again and recovering, you still have to now compete and get yourself in physical shape. And that's where the depression really hits. If you watch people's reactions, these athletes when they're hurt, and you see them breaking down all just immediately, you see a grown man, he's 250 pounds, or he could be 180 pounds, 150 pounds, it doesn't matter. You see him breaking down, people are thinking like, are you crying because it hurts? No, they're not crying. They're numb to the physical side. What they're crying about is they're thinking this might be it. How will I ever get back to the point where I was before this injury? So this is more so the toil, and then other things that are a factor is They may not have the best team, to negotiate things for them, or they don't have a choice. So, if you're from a different country, I have guys from around the world. You have guys from different countries. The only way they're getting over here is if there's an entity or a group.
Okay, so one, we didn't understand any of that back part. So thank you, Egypt, for breaking it down. I wish I paid more attention in civics class, but uh no, I think also me also being in these political spaces now, it's interesting to hear your perspective because a lot of the time I don't really understand some of the things that they're talking about or how certain things work. So I'm glad that you explained that to us, especially in a business model and someone having a business and going into these spaces.
Yeah.
So the last question that I want to ask you is because anytime we talk about something, we're identifying a problem, we're saying what we're doing to be the change, how we're changing. I know that one of the things that we kind of sidebar about before was the call to action. And for people to understand what's happening today, what resolutions are in place today. So, can you kind of give us your expert opinion about what that is as far as the call of action and what's really going on right now that we don't even know about?
Yeah, so the call to action that we're making right now is we're writing actual resolutions, and you write a resolution that turns into a bill, and policy is what they call it. Mind you, I had to become educated on these things. I didn't wake up with all the information, but you write a resolution that's specific, and then that goes to the policy makers and writers, and then those policymakers go through the process of turning that into either an amendment on a current bill of legislation, or it becomes a new bill which becomes enforced and becomes a law or becomes a statute. And then that's how the funding can be granted to all those changes of legislation, and whether they're modified or they're ratified. Well, for us, we're hitting so many different communities. We're sticking with the statewide and federal level because city and county will take us, the same amount of work, but we won't make the same progress. Now, in some states, we are going to hit certain cities, your New York City, LA, things of this nature, because, Vegas, some of these cities are so big, they are almost like a state. So, in that case, yes, you have to, touch the cities. But in essence, what awareness in mental health, we've done that. We went to the networks. I have my athletes, even when they would win, they would dedicate their fights to mental health, and they're talking when the world is seeing them about what they went through and things of this nature. So awareness has already been a call to action. Now the world wants to see results. Every time I see a mass shooting or I see more escalated violence and more chaos, that means that I have more work to do. So, I never feel like we've done enough, which is why I don't sit around and brag about what we've done, how many people have recovered, even though, we have a motto that, if one gets help, if one gets saved and receives hope, then it was all worth it. You never know who that one person is going to turn out to be. They could turn out to be a Holly Cotton. They could, go into legislation. They could become an executive. They could become a medical provider, a doctor, or an attorney, or they could even create another organization that helps people. So, we don't get lost on the fact that you can't just focus always on hundreds, thousands, or millions of survivors and people that are changing, but you also have to look at that one as a victory. With that being said, we're looking at making changes immediately to where sports and entertainment is also angled and not being promoted with the wrong messages. It's a constant fight to make sure that the real message is out there, where they're looking to monetize cigarettes or alcohol or things of this nature that could be damaging. So by having these solutions, we're doing one thing that's going to change and alter fitness. For example, is we have these mental experience, the mind experience, having different athletes from different sectors, heroes, veterans, speak to call centers, speak to sales forces, speak to workforces, speak with teachers and your educators, all the the medical nurses, and all different types of sectors out there, to give them their approach on how they were able to adjust and solutions that work for them. So that's one thing that's being developed right now, and we're signing agreements currently with organizations to do this. Also, on the legislative, we're getting candidates in office, and we're backing them and assisting them through our platforms and our associates to get the right people in the right seats. Because we can't always expect the people that are in those seats now to necessarily make changes that they haven't already made. So that's another battle, is getting people in those seats that really matter. And then most importantly is uniting our providers and uniting our businesses, so that when a person's stressing, when they're struggling, they're not wondering like, well, who do I call? Do I have the right insurance for them? Am I going to get help, from these people? We're vetting them out very carefully, and we're also making sure that these businesses, their production is going to increase, because they're going to see that they have people that are living better, they're feeling better, they have more optimistic views on society and on their own lives and the people around them. So all these things are turning the we don't want the vessels and the instruments of chaos, but we want to empower the vessels of peace. And so whether it's our sports, whether it's our relationships, and whether it's legislation, we're using those all as tools of peace.
I love that, Egypt. I love that. Okay, okay, okay. All right. So, and I'm so excited because now I'm part of the posse. Now I'm
That's
part of
right.
the crew.
That's right.
I mean, yeah, I'm making a change through you. Uh,
Yeah.
so so before I ask you about how people can support you or whatever, I just wanted to also just kind of give a sneak peek, because I know you have a documentary coming out for fighting for mental health as well.
Yeah.
So can you give us a little bit of like a little intel on that, because it's next year, right? Or
Yeah.
you're anticipating next year?
2024. Well,
Okay.
what a great question. So, in all the fighting for mental health, we've had so many ridiculous moments, and I mean, we caught a majority of this on film, or as much as possible. So, whether it was interviews like these, the conversations we were having as a team, we predicted, and when people use this word, people are overly using the word manifesting now, because there's all these gurus and self-help books out there. But in reality, we really did manifest many things that have now become our everyday. I spoke these things and I said certain things were going to happen, but then we put the work behind it, and they're seeing it. So one thing is, for people out there to receive hope, they need to see where the work and the inspiration came from, and see these things with the people that they call their heroes, or stars, or people that are extremely notable and popular. I held on to thousands of hours of you know us just hanging out, us talking about these things, us getting things done, the happy things, the sad parts, the victories, and the adjustments. We haven't really taken losses, but adjustments are necessary. And for people to be able to live that with us, I mean, it's going to take what mental health has been, which is like a sad story, and turn it into a hero story. And that's what we're doing with the documentary.
Okay, I can't wait to see. Okay, I'm excited. So last question. How can people, because now everybody and their mama, first of all, you cannot be like me. I got grandfathered in, but you can still
Yeah.
support. You can still support. You can't be like me and
Yeah.
VIP, but you can
Yeah.
support. So, how can people support Fight for Mental Health? How can people find you? How can we support you? Give it to the audience. What exactly are you looking for? How can we be a part of this movement that you're doing? And also, how can people find and support you as well?
Thank you so much. Well, number one, we're not asking for contributions or donations. The way that they can support us is we're putting on elite events. We're planning them out now. We put together experiences, so people are able to come and have an experience like never before. So if they've never been around stars or heroes or icons, in a sense, we're taking a Make a Wish and giving it a little twist consistently with the events that we put on. And in addition to that, we want businesses. We still have room for our 100 businesses. To come aboard and become a strong part of their sector for this. Providers. We want all medical providers. We're looking for two in every state. Excuse me. So in some states, we already have one, but we can use an additional. This is a big problem. Takes all hands on deck. Where they can find us on social media at official Egypt X on Instagram. We have Fight for Mental Health, like the number four is our website. At official Fight for Mental Health is our Instagram. Again, like the number four. And I'll put it out there. We enjoy having media, opportunities like yours, and of course, we'll be sending people your way to really push the word out. Not so much just on the branding, because that's on the business side. Of course, you have to brand and market and advertise. Yes, but what's more important is we give hope. So we want to send that message of hope to more people. You never know who may use it or who may need it. So that's really the bottom line. And from there, I look forward to they'll be seeing you at our events and seeing you in that VIP situations with us. I'm sure they'll want to join you.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you, Egypt. Now, don't make me have to pull this out and be like, remember Egypt on November 19th?
Yeah. Well, you have the content. You have it right here.
Yes. Honestly though, I will also have all of Egypt's information in the podcast notes as well. I always have clickable links as well. But one of the things that I just really, really, really love about you, Egypt, is just how humble you are. And even as you're talking, you could be someone that's like, I made my money, or I'm good, or I've done this, I've been in these rooms, I'm around here, I'm just going to live my life. But the fact that you are so passionate about being the change, that this is such a huge initiative for you, I'm really moved by that, and definitely inspired. So thank you so much for sharing your story and giving us a little bit of your time, because we know you got 82 jobs, so we appreciate we appreciate you coming and not only just telling us about the organization, but also giving all of that extra information to educate people as well, because I think that's so crucial to actually supporting something that you believe in, because oftentimes you see someone but you maybe don't understand how all the logistics of that is even working, or how that is applicable to you. You don't know, you just like, oh, I guess, or I don't know. So I really appreciate you also, for all of our viewers and listeners, giving them that education as well. So
Thank you
that
so
is
much.
Mr. Yes, of course. That is Mr. Egypt Brown, you guys. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. So thank you, Egypt.
Thank you for having me.